Good morning, everyone. My name is Aisha Dixon. I'm the director of the UCLA Emeriti Retirees Relations Center, and we're so glad you joined us this morning for today's important and sometimes timely topic of relocating. We are joined today with our special guests, and just a little housekeeping. Please feel free to type all your questions into the chat. I'm going to mute everyone so we don't have any stray landscapers or animals in the background. But once we get to the end of our program, you can unmute yourself and ask questions and type them in the chat. We are recording today's session, so if you have to step away for a bio break or anything else important, please feel free to do that. I will send a follow-up email after today's workshop and have the recording and everything on there. So let me introduce our speaker, Greg Gunderson. Greg is a nationally recognized pioneer and leader in the senior relocation industry and has been helping older adults throughout the challenges of moving for nearly 30 years. His company, Gentle Transitions, is one of the oldest and largest companies of its type in the country and has been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, the LA Times, CNN FN, and the Wall Street Journal. Just recently, he was quoted on the AARP website, and the company was featured in the New York Times just last month. Greg has personally performed nearly 1,000 senior moves himself and is happy to share with you today all the things, pros and cons that you need along the way. Glad to have you here, Greg. I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Aisha. It's wonderful to be here. Good morning to everyone. Hope all are doing well. So I do, hold on here. There we go. It would be good to be together on campus today, but actually I can't think of a better place to have a webinar on the subject of downsizing, decluttering, and or moving than in our own homes. So over the next few minutes, as we discuss a number of topics, you can look around your house and think about the items that we discuss. I do have to let you know that we have several connections with UCLA. One is I personally have done a number of moves really close to campus. There's a very nice retirement community there on Tiverton. Have performed moves there for many, many years. Our managing director at Gentle Transitions, Jennifer Hiller, her daughter recently graduated from UCLA, and actually put together a picture of a house where we were doing a move. And interestingly enough, while I was doing the move and packing up this client, I walked out to the van to pick up supplies. And just at that very moment, her daughter, Sony, was running by the house at that very moment. And then a minute later, then Jennifer called me and I put Sony on the phone. So Sony recently graduated from UCLA and had a great experience. And finally, my wife is a graduate of UCLA a few years ago. So I wanted to make those connections. So Aisha was nice enough to mention that my company was featured in the Wall Street Journal. And what's really interesting about this is that they did an entire story on the task of downsizing. And I think we all know that the Wall Street Journal is a business and financial paper, yet they saw the need to devote almost an entire page to this subject. What I thought was curious is the title they came up with is A Torturous Task of Downsizing. And let me tell you, downsizing is not easy. It's not, but there's no reason it needs to be torturous. And hopefully I'll share with you in the next few minutes some ideas that make it not torturous and actually quite doable. So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is a couple of things. One is talk about decluttering. And decluttering is a term that we use, frankly, when people are trying to remove things from a home, but really don't have plans to make a move. And certainly some of you on this call might be doing precisely that. Some of you may be downsizing, getting ready for a move, and trying to edit the number of things they have in their home. And certainly some of you may be considering making a move. Now, I'm sure there are many people on this call that have no plans to make any move anytime in the near future, and that's fine. But I'd like to suggest some ideas during this call that might make moving seem doable, should you think about that down the road. So when it does come to moving, it's really one of life's most difficult experiences, along with job change, divorce, loss of a spouse. And really moving and really downsizing too is challenging for anyone of any age, whether in your 30s, your 50s, or your 90s. Nobody likes to move or downsize. But moving and downsizing is particularly troublesome for older adults. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, most of us are leaving a home after many, many, many years, 10, 20, 30, 40 years or more. And I'm sure if we were to take a survey on this call today on this webinar, we'd have a number of people that say they've been in their home for 30 years or more. And they would probably say that leaving a home after that length of time is more than just a physical change of place. It's an emotional experience. It's where the kids grew up, where family events took place. So that makes it a big, big deal. Another reason moving and downsizing is challenging, most of us are going from a larger place to a smaller one, which frankly requires making a decision about every personal possession in a house. Garden tools in the garage, family photos in the den, china and crystal in the dining room, toiletries under the bathroom sink. And for most of us, this is enough to put off making a move and the reason for part of our presentation today. So what I'd like to do today is share with you my 5 favorite downsizing momentum tips, things I've learned over more than 30 years that might be helpful to you should you be contemplating a move in the future, or should you simply be wanting to declutter your home as it is today. But before I get into those tips, it's always good to look at the lighter side of things, particularly when it comes to moving. And so I'd like to share with you a few slides that I hope you'll enjoy on the lighter side of moving. The first one is this nice little cartoon here. And you'll see in the cartoon, gentleman is in his favorite easy chair. Lady of the household looks like she's paying the movers. But what she says to the movers, here's 20 bucks. Make sure the plaid chair never gets there. So hopefully some of you are enjoying that. Some have said she wants the movers to take the chair and her husband somewhere else. And others have suggested, well, there'd be an extra fee for that. So I thought you might enjoy that. I thought you might enjoy this as well. I saw this in the client's home. The opinions expressed by the husband in this house are not necessarily those of the management. I'm sure those of you who are couples can relate to this. And if you're not, I'm sure you can relate for couples as well. And my final slide before we get down to business here. If I knew grandchildren were going to be so much fun, I would have had them first. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. But let's get down to work here. Let's talk about the downsizing momentum tips I'd like to share with you today. And there are 5 that I thought were important enough to share on our webinar today. The first one is this: use colored dots or Post-it notes to identify items in a house. Tip number 2, and I'm going to get into these in detail in just a minute. Do easy and obvious areas first. Tip number 3, do the hard projects now. Tip number 4, get in a head start with clothes in the closet. And finally, tip number 5, I want to introduce to you what I think is the best downsizing tool ever, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. So let's turn to downsizing tip number 1, use colored dots or Post-it notes to identify items in a house. Our team at General Transitions, when we are working with clients, we use colored stickers that coordinate to a stoplight. Green is for go, things to move. Red is for stop, things that don't move, they go to sale, charity, or family. Or yellow, things we're decided about, we'll come back to later. So colored stickers work really well. Post-it notes do also. And again, this is applicable whether you're making a move or simply trying to declutter and remove things from a house. Tip number 1A, as I call it, when you do this, do separate your decision-making from actually packing or bagging of things. And the reason I say this is that packing diverts the focus from decision-making, and packing takes so much energy. So just try to focus on the decision-making separate from the physical activity of getting things to where they need to go. And actually, we put together a little demonstration video that shows how this works. And I'm going to share that with you now. I like to demonstrate how a cupboard, a cabinet, or a closet can easily be organized into things that move and things that don't prior to a move. We use little colored stickers that coordinate to a stoplight. Green is for go, things to move. Red is for stop, things that don't. And let's take a look at this linen closet. So I see here on the top shelf, bedding that belongs to beds that will not move. I know these things don't move. And then I see these sheets still in their plastic bags, never been opened, never been used, and probably never about to be. So I'm going to put a red sticker, things that do not move, for everything on this shelf. I'm going to look at the second shelf. I see towels that are used regularly. And then I see these towels, which is a potpourri of Valentine's to tennis. We're not going to bother with these. So I'm going to place these on the red shelf. I look at this third shelf. I see towels used regularly. Bedding for the bed. So I'm going to put a green sticker, things to move. And then I see the beach towels. Now we're certainly not going to need all those at the new place because we won't have a backyard pool. But we do want to take a few of them. And I've selected these two to go to the new place. So I'm going to place them here on the green shelf, things that move. And now I'm all organized. The two shelves that do not move with red stickers, or you can use Post-it notes, like so. And you can place them on the shelf or on the side of the wall. And now I am completely organized in this closet. It's ready to make a move a few weeks down the road or a few months. And now I can move on to another part of the house. So there you have it. So using stickers or Post-it notes is a phenomenal way, at least in my view, whether you're moving or whether you're simply trying to declutter, to organize what you want to have go away and whatnot, and then later do the physical activity of getting things to charity or what have you. Okay. So let's turn now to downsizing tip number 2, do easy and obvious areas first. And by far, this is the most important tip in this presentation, is do the easy and obvious areas first. Before I get to that, you might enjoy this picture here of a coffee mug. On the coffee mug, it says, "I used to be indecisive, now I'm not sure." Some of you can maybe relate to that. I love the expression on the teddy bear's face. I don't know how they're able to do that. But you know what the most interesting part of this picture is for me? Yeah, it's the broken handle on the coffee mug, which my client had in her home, and she moved to the new place. But I did get a quick picture of it before we made the move. So when it comes to easy and obvious areas first, start in unused rooms and spaces. Decision-making will come faster in those areas. If you can't decide on something, move on. Use those yellow stickers or something, or come back to later. Always, always you want to move forward in the process. I like to share this story about this little clock. I was working with a client in the Valley, actually, and with a couple, and they were discussing the clock. The gentleman in the household said, "You know, we could get a lot of money for it in the sale." But the lady of the household said, "But Mary has always really liked that clock." And I'm listening to this conversation and smoke starts coming out of my ears, because nowhere in that conversation did they ask, do we want the clock or do we want to keep the clock? They just skipped right past that to all the different places the clock could go. And they never asked themselves if they wanted to keep the clock. So I redirected them that day. First, decide whether you want something or not. Then later decide what to do with unwanted items. All right. So speaking of what to do with unwanted items, we could actually do an entire presentation on this subject. We're not going to do that today, but I do want to share a couple thoughts, because people are always challenged by what to do with things they no longer want. So I want to share with you a couple thoughts. First, be prepared for your family to not want your things. Yeah, so many of my clients are disappointed that family members don't want the set of china or don't want that special gift or the special this or that. So prepare your mindset that your family may not want your things. If they do, that would be fabulous. But for the most part, the younger family members, their tastes are different and their houses are already full. So likely they won't want your things. I also want to prepare your mindset that prepare for your items not to have value, or certainly not the value you may have paid for back in the day, as they might say. So a couple thoughts about that further. Certainly some of our clients do engage estate sale groups. They don't do the sales themselves, but they engage in a estate sale group to conduct a sale. But now more and more actually, people actually are forgoing estate sales and just arranging for what I call our cleanout groups. And the way these work is that they come back, you make the move, or you find out all the things you want to declutter, collect them all in one place. And then an estate sale group or a closeout group comes, picks it all up, it takes it somewhere else, and they deal with it from there. So it's an efficient way to deal with things, particularly because the cost of things or the value of things is so much lower than it used to be. And I jumped ahead just a bit that when it comes to unwanted items, our best downsizing tool ever, that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, is also a great resource when it comes to unwanted items. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. Tip number 3, do the hard projects now ahead of a move, or certainly now if you're going to declutter. But before I get to that, I do want to take a minute and share with you what senior relocation services are, companies like mine, because most people have no idea that these services even exist. People are aware of realtors, people are aware of estate sale people, people are aware of moving trucks, but most people are completely unaware that there's now an entire industry of what we call senior relocation services. And as Aisha was nice enough to mention, my company has been doing this for quite a number of years. My company and others like us help people with floor planning, sorting, downsizing, packing, and then when it comes to the move, unpacking, putting everything away. And we actually put together a video that explains what it is that we do in other companies, and refers to other companies like ours as well. And I'm going to share that video with you now.
Moving is one of the most difficult things we do in life. No matter the age, 35, 55, or 85, no one likes to move. In fact, moving for seniors is particularly troublesome, as most are leaving a home after many, many years, and most are moving from a larger place to a smaller one. If the thought of moving overwhelms you or someone you know, there is a solution. It's Gentle Transitions. This unique and nationally recognized service tends to all aspects of moving, especially for seniors. Here's how it works. Each client is assigned a move manager who is there every step of the way. Floor planning is the key first step. What to move, what not to move, and how to arrange. Then sorting and downsizing is done throughout the house prior to the move. When moving time arrives, Gentle Transitions does the packing, works side by side with movers, and at the new place is there to unpack the boxes, make the beds, hang pictures, and transform that new space into a comfortable and familiar home. Don't be overwhelmed by moving. Act now and call, email, or visit gentletransitions.com.
So obviously the video talks about my company in particular, but the point of my message here is that services like this exist, whether it's my company or and there's lots of other companies in California and elsewhere as well. In fact, I was part of a group that founded an organization. We call it NASM. You see the logo there. That provides, there's an entire association of more than 1,000 companies and individuals like mine that provide these services. And again, I just wanted to share with you all, because most people have no idea that there are services that can help you go through a closet, or help you go through a garage, or help you go through a public storage locker that you put things into 5 years ago and don't even know what's in there now. And then on moving day, should you make a move, is also there to make the beds, hang pictures, put all back together. Okay. So let's move ahead with downsizing tip number 3, talking about doing the hard projects now. What are those hard projects? Well, certainly books for many people. Paperwork is also challenging, and also photos. So let's look at each of these subjects individually. So certainly books is challenging for a lot of folks. And I believe we have faculty on our call today, and stereotypically, College professors and professors of any kind are stereotypically known to have lots and lots of books, hundreds, if not thousands on occasion. So what about books when it comes to making decisions about books? Well, I think books are kind of in two categories. One, books you've read, and two, books you haven't. I'm not a book reader myself, but I've been told that by bookworms, they suggest keep the books you've read and not bother with the ones you haven't. For most of my clients, we kind of pick out their favorites, and that seems to do the trick quite nicely. And let me also say this. On occasion, we have clients where we have moved thousands of books to their new place, oftentimes their new place at a retirement community. And as long as we have space for the bookshelves, we're happy to do that, because for many people, that's what makes their house a home. And perhaps there are some professors on this call that is exactly the case. As long as there's space for that, we're happy to do that. So no worries there. So one of the other really challenging aspects is paperwork, what to do with paperwork. And when it comes to taxes and other kinds of things, my advice, ask your own tax advisor which records you need to keep and for how long. They know your personal financial situation. Ask them the question. And then when it comes to going through your stuff, what I suggest is doing, I set up spaces or boxes into three places. Things we're going to keep, things we're going to shred, that has our ID on it and so on, excuse me, and things we're going to simply recycle or trash. And when you do go through your things, I want you to remember something important. I want you to remember Ohio. Now, I think for the most part, we all live in California. Why do I want you to remember Ohio? Because Ohio stands for only handle it once. Now, I know this is a bit of a lofty goal, but if you can, whether you're trying to declutter in your own home or downsizing in preparation for a move, if you can just some of the time do only handle it once, you'll do just fine in this process. You don't need to do it all the time, but if you can, in a garage, in the kitchen cupboards, whatever, make a decision on an item and move on, you'll be just fine in this process. And one last thought about paperwork. Please do not use these shredding machines from Office Depot or Staples. Yes, those machines do shred, they shred fine, but they are meant for today's mail. They are not meant for days, weeks, months, years, and decades of bills and paperwork. They make a mess, as you can see in the picture, and worst of all, they take forever. So what I suggest to my clients, and I suggest to you all as well, engage a shredding service. This actually was a client in Culver City. She hired a shredding service. They came out to the house, they carted the stuff to their truck, and in this particular service actually shredded it right there in the truck. But the key to this message, my tip here is this: make the decisions about shredding, but don't actually do the shredding yourself. And I think we have one more subject on the task of hard subjects, and that is family photos. So I want to share with you a few thoughts about family photos. First of all, if you are looking through your pictures, focus on the pictures of people, not scenery. So if you've been to the Eiffel Tower and you've been to Yosemite or the Golden Gate Bridge and you got pictures of those great travel locations, that's wonderful. But the pictures you want to focus on are the pictures of people, family, and friends. I think most of us probably are aware nowadays as well that there's lots of ways to preserve photos, and where there are now a number of companies that will scan those photos, digitize them, and you can share them with lots of family members. And also, as long as you're not moving, you actually might be really surprised that going through those family photo albums is a really nice walk down memory lane. Ah, yes. What about sentimental? I'm sure you'll come across old family photos. This is a family photo from my own home, actually my parents' home. And that's actually my brother and I. And I'd ask you which one's which. That's me on the right. What's really interesting about this picture, if you look at my brother on the left, in the left picture, he has the book. And then they decide they'll be really smart and take the book away, and look what happens. He's screaming bloody murder. What's really curious is that picture I showed you a few minutes ago of all the books. Well, that's my brother's living room today. So he loved pictures, he loved books then, and he loves books today. But my advice to you about family photos is that moving is not the time to look through family photos, either long before a move or long after a move. And certainly if you're simply decluttering, you can do that anytime. And in my line of work, I've come across a lot of interesting family photos. Here's one that I thought you might enjoy. It looks like it could have been on the cover of Life magazine. It wasn't. It just happened to be in the bedroom hallway for one of my clients. I think it's the most adorable picture ever. I also, for myself, I like military pictures. And I came across this picture in a client's home not too long ago. What's really curious about this picture is, where is my client? Yeah, that's her there, Elizabeth. She's on the airplane. So that was her fiance, the pilot down below at the time, and then husband, and he had since passed away. But I haven't had too many clients pictured painted on airplanes, so I got a kick out of that. And my last picture I want to share with you is two sisters in front of the Golden Gate Bridge, albeit a few years ago. And I took a double take at this picture because there's something missing. What is it? Yeah, the bridge. It's not there yet. So they finished the Golden Gate in 1937. So presumably this was taken in 36. So I got a kick out of that, and I hope you enjoyed these couple pictures. I do know that if you are going to look through your family photos, please do not do that during a move. So we have two more tips to go. Downsizing tip number 4, which I think you will find really, really useful and helpful. Getting a head start with clothes in the closet. Now, this is not my closet. It's not President Reagan's closet. It's not, I don't know, but it's actually Liberace's closet, or maybe 1/10 or 1/100th of his closet. But when it comes to clothes in the closet, I have a couple of suggestions for you. 2, I think, awesome tips that you can use today, this afternoon, this week, this month, to get a good head start with clothes in the closet, whether you're moving or simply decluttering. The first one is this: reduce duplicates of the same item. A lot of times when I come across a client, let's say a woman, and we're going through her clothes in a closet, and I'll find what I call as a rainbow of slacks. The picture there is not slacks, but a lot of times the rainbow of slacks look like this, where it's all set up by color. But I can guarantee you this: if you have 6 pairs of red slacks, you go to the same pair or the same 2 pair every time. So if you have 6 or 8 or 10 of the same kind of thing, I'll bet you can reduce that to 1 or 2, and you won't miss the other items. I mentioned a woman with slacks. This is also completely applicable to gentlemen as well. A lot of times gentlemen will have 8 blue button-down shirts, or 10 white ones, or 4 navy sport coats. So again, if you have 6, 8, or 10 of the same kind of thing, I'll bet you can pare that down and you won't miss those other items. So I like to think that's a really good tip to get a head start with clothes in the closet. Second tip I think is really good: eliminate clothes that don't fit. And I know you all are smiling in your homes listening to this tip. Many of us get larger. Actually, many older folks get smaller too. I don't care which direction it is, but if you have clothes in your closet, they no longer fit you, there's no reason to hold on to them currently. Okay? So those, I think, are really 2 really good tips to get started with clothes in the closet. But actually, Jennifer from my staff has an even better tip. We call it the reverse hanger trick. And I'm going to let Jennifer explain how it works.
So let me demonstrate. As you can see here, there are several tops hanging nicely on their hangers. And what you simply do is take a few and turn them around. All right, so you just simply turn them around and put them backwards. Quite simple. Just grab a few. In the interest of time, I'm just going to do this section. All right, so there you have it. Okay, all the hangers are turned backwards. I've put a note here with today's date, and then don't give it a further thought. And then when you go to wear something, let's say I decide to wear this sweater, I take it out, take it off the hanger, wear it, clean it, and then when I return it, I just put it back in, but I put it back in the regular way. And then in a couple months, 3 or 6, you're going to start to see what you're not wearing, and you'll know you've not worn those, probably unlikely to ever wear them, and it's a great opportunity for donation and or to give them to someone else. And that's it. That's the reverse hanger trick. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And again, my favorite part of this tip is that it requires no thought on your part whatsoever. This is something you can do today, this week, this month, and not think about it, and then go back to see which hangers are still backwards. So we have just one more tip to share with you today. And just a reminder that if any of you have comments or questions, I think you can put them into the chat. And when I conclude here in just a minute or two, Aisha will see if we have some chat comments and or questions. So I know you've been really anxious to find out about tip number 5, the best downsizing tool ever. Drum roll, please. Oh, it's not a moving toolbox. It's not a tape measure, dots, post-it notes, tape gun, notepad. It's none of those things. So now let's roll the drum roll. Music. Come on. There we go. So that's just to add a little drama. So what is the best downsizing tool ever? It's your cell phone camera. Absolutely. Now, if you're not good with a cell phone camera, I'll bet you know people who are. And there's a number of reasons why a cell phone camera is really, really helpful to the downsizing or the decluttering process. And let me tell you what those things are. First of all, I suggest for all of you, you're already at home, you don't have to go home and do this, but just take tons and tons of pictures of your home as it is today. Take pictures of walls, take pictures of rooms, take pictures of items. You can take as many as you like. And the reason I suggest this is I've had clients tell me that having the pictures of their stuff is better than having the stuff itself. Who knew? In addition to that, it's also really helpful to sharing pictures with family who can't travel, or, particularly in this post-pandemic period, you can share them pictures of your things that maybe they don't remember. And with regards to unwanted items, it's great to share pictures with estate sale people or appraisers that you can send them, email them the pictures, text them the pictures, or print them and mail the pictures to them. The piano in this photo belonged to a client that I worked with in the Valley. We took pictures of those, sent them to an appraiser, and the appraiser picked up the phone, called me right away. It was worth $50,000. Now that doesn't often happen. More often than not, it's like the little the stamps there. You see the first day of issue stamps, and we had a client who had a whole collection of those. We also sent those to an appraiser, and he wrote back right away, sorry, not worth much. So photos are good for those purposes as well. Photos also are a great way to donations. So rather than making a list of all the stuff you're doing, which is so hard to do, take a picture of it, like you see there. And I kind of talked about this earlier. Take a picture of your favorite items, then discard them. I actually moved myself 2 or 3 years ago from the house my children grew up in, the house where we were for 25 years. And I would come across things that I thought were really sentimental. I would come across my CDs, but I know I don't have a CD player. So what did I do? I just laid them out on the garage floor and I took a picture of the covers, and I kind of get a kick out of that. Then I came across a picture of my brother and I. There we are in high school. That came from my parents' home. It's a really large photo. It's very nice, but I never hung it in my house, and I was never about to hang it in my new house. So what did I do? I took a picture of it. And then I also came across these collages that my daughter had done in Indian princesses. And I knew I was never going to use these, but what did I do? I took a picture of them. So I can tell you from my own firsthand experience that if you take pictures of those things as I did, I had no problem discarding them because I had those pictures. Okay. So there you have it. Those are my 5 favorite moving momentum tips after helping literally hundreds and hundreds of older adults make moves for nearly 30 years. What I can also let you know is that moving and downsizing is not easy. I'm not here to tell you that it is, but I am here to tell you it is totally, completely doable. And particularly when it comes to moving, so many people are intimidated by the thought of making a move. But what I've seen on many, many occasions is that following a move or a downsize, people actually are revitalized by new surroundings. People actually look and feel much younger. And believe it or not, many people comment they wish they'd done it sooner. But they were so overwhelmed, they just couldn't get past that. So my last slide before I turn, not my last slide, my next slide is I want to give you a little inspiration that yes, you can do this. And I tried to share with you some tips on how to go about doing it, but more importantly, give you some inspiration that you can do it. And now my last slide, before I turn it over to Aisha, is to answer this question. Is moving, downsizing worth it? And believe it or not, I think Walt Disney has the best answer I could ever imagine. And if we said to Walt, is moving or downsizing worth it? His answer, tomorrow can be a wonderful age. So I hope you found the webinar here informative and interesting as well. And now I will turn it over to Aisha. See if we have any questions on the chat.
Yeah, we do have a few. So I'll start with the chat questions. And then if you have a question and you want to raise your hand, you can do that as well. So the question is, what movers do you work with? I used a company in the past and they were supposed to treat all my items lovingly. And after over $3,000 of damages, they lost my items and they offered a whopping $75 in compensation.
Wow. That's one of those moving stories you hear about on the 10 o'clock news. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I would suggest that you contact our office at General Transitions. There are a number of movers that we have worked with over the years. I don't want to share favorites right now. Certainly are different favorites for different areas. Those in the Valley, those in Orange County, those in the Bay Area, San Diego and the desert as well. We use different movers that are local to those places. But you see our logo there. Actually, I'll share with you our contact info, our website and our phone number. And we'd be glad to share with you movers that we have worked with that we've had mostly good experiences with.
Okay. I need to get rid of books that I would not read again. I keep having to downsize several times, over 10,000 titles. Is there a place to donate books?
Yeah, whatever place you can find is my answer to that. I don't have a good answer these days. Libraries do take books. Some libraries do. I can also tell you that libraries don't put those books on the shelves. They turn around and sell them or recycle them so they can purchase new books. I would start with libraries. I also talked about estate sale people and clean out people. And I also give them all the books that I come across with clients and let them deal with it. Because frankly, there just isn't a market for books. And I think we need to understand that is the case. But I would start with libraries and then estate sale and clean out people as ways to make books go away.
Yeah, especially because libraries are kind of a dying breed. So it's kind of sad with books. The garage is the biggest task for me. Stuff from when kids were little, trophies, Letterman jackets, wedding dresses. Where do we do with this stuff?
Yeah, so a couple of things. When it comes to kids' mementos that you've been holding on to, what I think is a good idea is to give kids deadlines. By the end of the month, 1 month, this is June, but by the 4th of July, if you don't come and get your things, they're going to get pitched or disposed of. Find a nice term to say that. But I think kids sometimes respond to deadlines. And then if they don't, then they know that, that you've been storing those things for 20, 30 years or more. And now they need to store them or keep them, or that you'll discard them. So I think it's helpful to give kids deadlines. I also think it's helpful to engage services, organizing services or service like ours to help people in a garage because we can help with the physical parts of that, as well as kind of organizing it and helping with the decision making as well.
Yes. What do you do with people that move out of the LA area?
Yeah, so lots of people do move beyond local. Our company, General Transitions, we service all of California. And I did refer to an association earlier called NASM, NASMM. You can also find them on our website. And there are companies like ours, I'm going to say in almost every state, and certainly in every metropolitan area. We certainly have worked with a number of them. I'm currently working with a client moving to California from Chicago, another one from Denver. We have another client that is moving to Dayton, Ohio from the California area. So certainly lots of people are moving across state lines, which is certainly welcome. And there are companies like ours throughout the country.
Okay. Do you have experience with homeowners who need to move but have had significant hoarding issues? Do you partner with mental health organizations or professionals?
Yes, we do. So we certainly have had a number of hoarding clients or clients with excessive clutter, as I refer to it. One of the things that we've learned with clients that have an excessive amount of clutter is what we might call clutter. They don't think of it as clutter at all. And what we also come to understand is that while those things might seem valuable to us, they're extremely valuable to those particular clients. So we try to treat those situations with that understanding. When we do approach downsizing with clients with excessive clutter, we try to pick away, I call it the iceberg, do all the easier things first, like one of my tips, and get ourselves to the hard things. And certainly people, a lot of times when they move, they do a lot of decluttering. And sometimes we connect them with organizers to stay in touch with on a regular basis to help keep the home in a good living condition.
Okay, the next question, part 2 of that question. What about heirs who need to clear out their deceased parents' overstuffed home? It's a very different kind of move and usually involves sorting to donate or sell or clean away.
Yeah, so to us, that's actually really similar to when we help someone move. It's just that the person whose home it is doesn't happen to be there. And in that case, the decision makers are now typically family members. And then we work with those families to help them with that decision making, help them dig through things if there is a lot to work through. A lot of times we have worked with family members that are not local. And there are lots of innovative ways to do that: FaceTime, photos, all those kinds of things. So we do work with situations like that, and frankly, we find them quite similar to our regular process. It's just that the decision makers are different.
Okay. I am entertaining relocating to Texas. I don't know where to start. Do I buy first, then move, rent, then buy?
Yeah, so I would find the place that you want to move to first. Whether that's purchasing a property, renting a property, or perhaps considering a retirement community. So I would first try to figure out what that is, and then I would work with the things in my current home. And one of the reasons I suggest that is if clients are trying to declutter for a fictional home, it's much harder and much more difficult. For instance, when we move a client, sometimes they will have a really large kitchen and small closets. Well, if that's the case, you don't have to work so hard in the kitchen, but you have to work harder in the closets, or it might be vice versa. So I think the first step is finding that new place that you want to move to, and then work the process backward from there. And one last thought about that, Aisha, is that people say, well, how long is this process? And typically when we first meet a client to when they make a move is generally 4 to 6 weeks. And some people would say, how could I leave my home after 40 years in 4 to 6 weeks? But frankly, I think extending the period just extends the anxiety. And with a service like ours, that's more than enough time to make the decisions and move forward. So don't think this is a months or certainly not a years long process.
Okay, that's it for the chat questions. So if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask it live. I'm going to stop your screen share, Greg.
Okay.
I think I can do that. Let me see.
I can hit stop share.
Okay, maybe, yeah, can you please, okay, any questions?
Hi, everybody. I haven't been able to see you.
Ayesha, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, John.
Do you identify, I guess the trash company or where these things might go? I mean, help in that regard, because you often don't know where to go, how to get rid of it, maybe what charity, or I don't know. I mean, it's just where do you get rid of it?
Sure. So we don't dispose of things ourselves, John, but we do know lots of groups that do. Estate sale people that do closeouts for us. Sometimes it's little, local people that we've come across. We're glad to share that information with you. At the very, very worst, there's 1-800-GOT-JUNK and services like that will come in for a price. We'll remove whatever you have in the home, no questions asked. So at the very, very least, 1-800-GOT-JUNK and services like that will come and make everything go away, as I call it. And I try to not focus on what exactly happens to those things after they leave. And we at General Transitions for California are certainly glad to share other individuals that help with that.
So you more or less set those items aside, and then those companies will come in and remove it.
Yes, and it's good to have that nicely organized. If a person's making a move, we actually have them make the move and we move their things to the new place, and then have the cleanout group come afterwards, because it's so obvious what's left over. If you're simply decluttering, I would really want to organize all those things into one place, whether that's the floor in the garage or a particular unused room, or an enclosed patio in a house. So it's really obvious for the cleanout people what is for them.
Thank you.
Karen, you have a question with your hand up?
Yeah, actually, I was more interested in seeing if we could chat about each other's experiences. So for the last gentleman, I just got done doing all this, well, a year ago. I had to leave to help an aging family member who lived across country. So I'm going to tell you, can I tell you the name of the moving company? My understanding is they're going out of business now, but just in case they haven't, and you're in the LA area, please stay away from them because they were horrible. And it was United Nation Van Lines, not United Van Lines, but United Nation Van Lines. And then to donate things, there are several places. So yes, I've gotten rid of thousands of books to the libraries. You could give them to theater organizations. Schools will often take, I think UCLA took a ton of books for me. You can give clothing, of course, to, places like Salvation Army, Goodwill, whenever they're collecting. Veterans associations also take clothing, and there's really active ones in different parts of the country because the veterans are very active in Michigan, which is where I am now. So those are all places that you can look at for charitable donations. Sometimes the places, the missions and things like that will give out. I've donated cars to the veterans, and they like all kinds of cooking equipment and utensils because as people get out of the Army, they often don't have anything and they have to start from scratch. So it's a really easy and low cost way for them to get started again after they've served the country. So those are like some of my tips for getting rid of stuff. I typically shy away from the 800-GOT-JUNK people because they could be very expensive. And I found that I could get rid of it myself or, haul it myself or whatever. And there's usually dump sites and hazardous waste material places in every city that, sometimes if you go on the government websites, you can find those. So it is not really that time consuming to do all this stuff. And I absolutely agree that you could get all this done in 4 to 6 weeks because I had a very limited amount of time to get out of there and I did. And my place was like spotless when I left. So And I
Well
had to
done.
do, a lot of
Well done.
downsizing. So good luck.
What
That's
about,
fantastic.
what about furniture and antiques?
Yeah, so furniture and antiques is a similar, if you think about things we've talked about in the call, take pictures of those things. And then you can share those pictures with estate sale people or a thrift shop down the street to see if they have some value. And
Or
certainly
appraisers or auction houses, right?
may look at that. But I also referred to a couple of my slides that so many of my clients are disappointed by the value they discover of those, of most of those items.
I don't really care about the value. I just want to find, I don't want it to go to a landfill, you know,
Right.
just to kind of find a home for it. So
Yes,
value
so-
is secondary to me. Yeah.
sure. So as the last attendee was mentioning, certainly the Salvation Army and Goodwill and those kinds of folks, I think they are still do take furniture. You can certainly Google furniture donation in your local area. St. Vincent de Paul is another. So it takes a little bit of research. They don't come out right away to pick up your stuff. Sometimes they need some scheduling to do that, but certainly those things still do exist for sure.
Greg,
And
Lily,
also-
the cost about this, a question about the cost of our service.
Okay, so Lorraine, who was on our staff there, you see the logo there. I was asking about the cost of services like ours. So the cost of services basically is on an hourly basis. Companies that do senior move management, those prices can range anywhere from $70 to $90 an hour. Some people might say, oh my gosh, that's going to add up really fast to tens of thousands of dollars. That's not usually the case. Services like ours for people who engage us, probably 3,000 to 5,000 for what we do during a move. And if people are decluttering, it just depends on how much decluttering needs to be happen, but more like 1,000 or 2,000. Some people have a little sticker shock with that. Other people say there could not have been a better use for their money than to help with the decluttering or help with the move.
And I will say to the other person's comment about gifting things, there is a website that I've used before in the past, and I think there's an app as well called Buy Nothing, BUY, and the word nothing, and I'll put it in the follow-up email. But Buy Nothing is kind of like a hyper local gifting community. You go on the website, you type in your zip code, and you can say, hey, I'm giving away a scarf. I'm giving away this uneaten granola bar, and people will say, hey, yeah, I want it. And then you coordinate pickup or leaving it on your porch with their name on it. And I've done it for granola bar flavors that my daughter won't eat. I've done it for old t-shirts and jeans that I can't fit anymore. So I'll put it in the follow-up email, but it's called Buy Nothing. And it's definitely something where it's a local gifting community. There's no, people want things, and it's a great alternative as well. Any other questions we have? Let me see.
Is Karen still on? I'd like to know more about what you said about giving cooking equipment to the military.
Yeah, well, if you donate it to like the local veterans organization or people that have items available for them. So like, for instance, where I am now, there's a community thrift store that focuses on veterans. So they know when they get out of the military, they know to go there and pick up whatever they need for the house. And it's thrift store prices. So they might be able to get something that's a couple $100 at, what used to be Bed Bath and Beyond and get it for a couple bucks there because it's been donated. So that's what I was talking about. So you could probably just Google your local veterans association or organization that helps veterans there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Greg and Lorraine, for joining us this morning. If you could send me your slides, if you feel comfortable with that, I can send out the slides and I will post the recording to our YouTube channel. So thank you all for coming out this morning. There's lots of great local resources with giving and gifting your items before you're moving, but at least now you have an idea as to how to do that. It can definitely be overwhelming. So please feel free to reach out to our colleagues, Greg. I'll send out the website and the phone number. So if you're ready to schedule something, you can take care of it this summer. So take care. Have a great Monday.
I
All
know.
right, thank
Bye.
you.